Moving on to the next set or next segment is you all are most of here are management students who are into the rural management, studying rural management. You must have thought of that. What are the career opportunities in rural marketing? So, like there are reinvented business models, the population or rising rural prosperity, changes in demands and lifestyle or life cycle advantages. What are the factors that are making rural an extremely intriguing and rewarding field for the graduates from marketing and other streams? So for that we have carved out a special panel discussion focused on career opportunities in rural marketing. Like we would like to welcome our session moderator, Mr. Sanjay Panigrahi, who is a former Chief Customer Officer, Pidilite Industries, and member of National Advisory Council of RMAI. Mr. Ajay Desai, Chief Operating Officer, Agribusiness of Spice Money. Mr. C. Arun Kumar, Business Leader, Division Digital Products South Asia from Signify Innovations India Limited, formerly known as Philips Lighting. And Mr. Venkatram Vasantavada, Managing Director and CEO, Seedworks International. So I would hand it over to Sanjay sir for the further discussion. Over to you, Sanjay sir.
Okay, okay. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Great to be here in the RMI Flame Student Hours. We had a heavy dose of presentations about rural, different kind of agriculture, non-agriculture, services sector, then social entrepreneurship. A lot we heard. So I would not go into the details of why a rural marketing career or why rural market is prosperous. All those about 6 lakhs villages and how government is spending money, how mobility has taken a new stride, a leapfrog in rural, how rural non-farm income has been increasing, all have been discussed. So as management graduates and my audience, you would be knowing all that. So we'll straight jump into discussions with my panelists. Ajay is a very renowned person in the fintech segment. He has a long stint in rural banking. He is from Yes Bank. He was basically the senior president and chief financial inclusion officer at Yes Bank. He also led a fintech startup. So Ajay would very much love to also know how technology is doing wonders in the rural fintech industry. Venkat is basically a dairy technologist, a PhD now, and also a rural management graduate. He have had careers in best of class MNCs and Indian companies like Idea Cellular, DuPont, Advanta Seeds, Deepak Fertilizer. He has worked across Asia and Africa. He has diverse experience, diverse geography. So I am grateful to have you here, Venkat. We will look forward to your views on agriculture and allied fields and what kind of career opportunities of rural marketing that offers. And Arun
Thank you.
is the business leader of LED in Philips. Arun is an engineering graduate and an MBA. He has been with Philips for a long time and has a very good exposure to rural markets. And Signify is a very well-known brand in the rural segment in the country. So, Arun, we look forward to your expert views on this. So, gentlemen, what I will do is that I have four questions, which I will put one by one, and I would be seeking your views of how on this particular question. The first question is what I thought was about the scope of rural marketing with respect to your industry. How big is the size? What are the career growth opportunities in your industry? And does your industry or your organization uh, consider rural as a specific domain? Do they have a separate vertical for it, or it is along with the same organization structure which is there for the urban markets? So, Venkat, I will come to you first. What are your views about about rural marketing and the scope of rural marketing in your industry, basically agriculture and allied?
Thank you, Sanjay, and thank you, RMI, for having me. Yeah, so Sanjay, for us, everything is rural because we are basically catering to farmers, and they are all obviously in the rural area. So I will just restrict my points to the agriculture input industry. But to start with, obviously all of us we know that growing population and food demand, and given rapid urbanization and all, some of these challenges what we are experiencing. So as long as the planet Earth is there, obviously food has to be grown, and this is one of the most fundamental needs. Even if you look at it, to that extent, I would say agriculture would continue and for perpetuity till the time there is this thing, and hence there would be many opportunities. One of the today, if I look at agriculture, we are at interesting times in agriculture primarily for two reasons. One is climate change on the one end, obviously is impacting agriculture big time, and there is also a sustainability factor around it in terms of where people are talking about whether the food production is sustainable, not in terms of the volumes of the food we produce, but how sustainable are the practices, given that agriculture is responsible for 20% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So climate change on one side you have the sustainability, and on the third one is technological changes, which I'm using the word technology very broadly, because there are plant breeding technologies which obviously we have used, and now we have digital technologies, and how do they play. So very interesting times in agriculture, and especially for this generation of people who are going to get into agriculture, they would see agriculture taking a different leap altogether. Having said that, I think in the agri input industry, the critical inputs which go into are fertilizers, which is around 887,000 crores, industry at this point of time. I'm only talking about India. Seed industry is around 35,000 crores, growing at around 10 to 12%. And within seeds, you have vegetable seeds, and you have then, the field crops or row crops, what we call. The crop protection industry, which is the family of pesticides, fungicides, weedicides, is again roughly around 50,000 crores. These are organized, published numbers, which I am actually, talking about. Then you have mechanization, which is tractors and the other agriculture equipments, which is around again some 954,000 crores and things like that. The other industry which we have seen big, and you would also have read about news, is this whole drip irrigation or the alternate forms of irrigation, because India was always relying on an irrigation which was of one format, either monsoon dependent or canal, but now drip irrigation and things like that, which is actually growing at a very fast pace. Then you have this new feature of biologicals, which is biochemicals, biofertilizers, and whole set of this thing, which is actually on a very small base. It is growing exponentially. And then you have an agri-tech space, which enough and more is being talked about. Startups, how they are trying to solve problems around farmers in terms of market linkage, in terms of advisory, in terms of smart farming and areas like that. And then there are platforms which are there, platforms like a Dehat or an AgroStar, and multiple new formats are coming where they are actually trying to do an end-to-end service to the farmers and things like that. So I think these are the different areas in which rural management professionals can look at opportunities. So this is about an industry, but within the industry, again, you have conventional jobs of sales, marketing, crop management, and things like that. But the newer areas which are coming up and which we are seeing is largely around sales effectiveness, digital management, specialized campaign managers. The reason why I'm saying that these are the new emerging opportunities which have come up, because for a long time the rural markets were media dark, and to that extent the penetration was far and few. The beauty of these markets, at least the agriculture input markets, is unlike a conventional FMCG industry, the demand generation is not a function of only marketing, but it is actually a function of sales. So the sales guy is the sales professional as well as the marketing guy to a large time. I mean, till the time I have now spent two decades and more in the agri input industry. Now things have slightly changed, but because the product is not an impulse purchase and it is much more rational one, where you have to demonstrate the benefits of the product before he makes a decision, and it would be probably only a year later once he sees the product. So to that extent, the sales professional is actually not only a sales guy who will only do distribution, merchandising and all, but obviously has to involve in deep demand generation activities. And to that extent, the marketing and sales, the way it is looked at in an agri input industry, is slightly different from very conventional FMCG durables or industries of that sort. But the newer opportunities which are actually coming up are in the areas of digital, because today we know the smartphone penetration has gone up significantly even in the rural areas, and farmers are using variety of social medias and all to reach to the farmer, to give him the necessary advice, and also to take a feedback on this. Companies have actually started looking at multiple apps and looking at how do they increase the speed of the response to the farmer, and how do they look at collapsing the timeline so that it is much more real-time advisory than physically going every time and going it. So the digital is one aspect of it. Then what we call as the air to ground promos or the campaign management jobs. So there are conventional jobs, there are new emerging opportunities which are coming, and the bigger opportunities beyond an input industry is in these platforms where you are supposed to be a single point contact to a set of farmers, and then given the entire service, this thing. One of the biases, because the word marketing, the way you use it, and this has been my experience when I recruit management graduates, most of them would like to stick around trying to do fancy marketing corporate jobs, and not many right to take a plunge in the sales area. But what I would generally say is that, especially in the agri input industry, there is a lot of learning, and one has to rough it around at least for a couple of years on the sales, because then you try to understand the farmer better. And you have roles, not only the conventional sales role, but a sales effectiveness, a campaign management, and sometimes, even trying to apply or probably try to go and educate the farmer on some of the digital applications and tools which are there. So those are the areas. I mean, these are some broad thoughts which are at this point of time. But one thing which I should tell you, it's not that because I have been in agriculture, you are actually serving a very large purpose of trying to contribute in your own way towards the food security of the country or probably the globe. And one of the things which I have experienced, because I had in my formative years experiences in FMCG industry, cigarettes and durables and all, you are in connect with your end consumer almost on a regular basis. If you are a frontliner, because you have to go to the farmer at least once, you might go to one village today and the next village too. So you can see the impact, whether positive or negative is a different issue, on your actions onto the farmer, either in terms of a extension education or technology transfer or probably an objection handling or many other things. Not many industries would offer that opportunity even for a frontliner to go and understand the consumer. But still that mystery remains of why the farmer consumer buying behavior, because I just completed my PhD on farmer buying behavior, and still you have to unlock and you have to unlearn a lot about why he makes a decision and what forces him and what kind of a decisions he takes. So that is one thing which I would say. And it is a very steady state industry, unlike some of the industries which go through very rough patches, huge growths, and then probably come down. Agriculture has been steady state, not only in India but even globally. You look at companies, you track their share prices, you track their this thing. It might not be very glamorous to talk about, but the fact remains is it is very steady state, because that is a fundamental thing which every country would like to address. And then with all of these new things and new inputs which have come, we have seen now most of the tools and techniques or approaches what FMCG or a durable industry would adopt, the agriculture input industry has actually come to pace. There's the incremental learning about understanding the crop. Yeah, one fundamental thing is it is like a farmer selling. You have to be technically grounded, because you can't go and talk bullshit to the farmer. So to that extent, we normally mandate that one should be an agriculture graduate, because when you're going and talking to the farmer, you should have a sound knowledge about the crop and the agronomy around it, because the farmers are much more smarter than us. They have been doing this for a very, very long time. But having said that, I think today, companies are looking also at diversity. And I am a good case. I am a dairy technologist, but I have actually never done agriculture as a formal course. But thanks to Monsanto, when I joined, then I went through some grueling courses, and today I'm very confident about talking about crops, their agronomy, and stuff like that. So that is the only prerequisite which is there. And the apprehensions of what people would have, would I get tucked up into a tiny village, this whole rural marketing or rural village honeymoons which most of the management graduates do. I mean, we try to romanticize the whole thing beyond what is required. And but let me tell you, I think with all of that which India has now developed from where it was when we passed out to now, both in terms of infrastructure, in terms of facilities, in terms of access and all, I think there's much better place. And most of the postings are generally in district headquarters, and some of the district headquarters today are as good or as bad as that. So Sanjay, these are my initial thoughts, but I would wait for more questions from you.
Okay.
I hope I would have
Yes.
covered it.
Yes. I think you covered quite a bit. In fact, someone said that the marketing is not only a pretty picture department. That only
Yeah.
produce good advertisements, etc. It is all about the sales of connecting to the end consumer. In fact, I conducted a survey amongst about 50 graduates from different B schools, and all of them except for one, they had said that I wish there was a sales boot camp in our management 2 years education. We Because he said the first few years we spend in sales and this is hardly taught in B schools, and this is what you
Yes.
meet the consumers first. So a mix of marketing and sales, that's what I think the best part of agriculture. So next, coming to our friend Arun, I just wanted to pick your thoughts. The FMCG, basically, of which your lights are a part. They are basically a very large segment of. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, Arun. Sorry. So what I was saying is that FMCG is the fourth largest segment, and 45% of India's total FMCG market comes from rural. Uh, you know, and what are your thoughts about the industry size? What kind of careers people can have in rural marketing as far as your industry is concerned?
And
Okay.
thanks, Sanjay, and thanks, Venkat, for very knowledge in terms of seeds, what happening. I think it's a very good insight for us too. So let me talk about, to be specific, in lighting industry, what is rural. In fact, the lighting industry thought about the rural only in the year 2000, and the first company to start was Philips, and it is 22 years now. And post that, I think almost all companies, they have got into the rural space now. So for us, the business size, if you ask me today, the rural contributes close to about 23, 24% of our overall revenue in our consumer business. So that means if I have to, it's close to about 500 crores is the revenue for us. And when the more, because I am with this Philips from last 28 years, so that it is almost sort of born and brought up in a company. So I know how we have gone through this rural by project called Operation Bharat in year 2000. So that time more we were thinking of in terms of how to get to this rural market. I will not say even rural, that time be semi-urban market, because all the lighting industry, if you see, the reach or our path used to be from 1 lakh population town and above. Less than 1 lakh we.
So let me shorten my speech so that we can save some time and finish this on time. Okay, so both respect to Venkat sir and Arun sir, they have given a perspective of rural sector in general. So I will restrict my speech to only the BFSI sector, more specifically. So there are two unique things in BFSI sector with respect to rural. First thing, the regulator has got a strong mandate for BFSI sector to go into rural. In banking parlance, there is a 40% PSL mandate, and similarly, there is I think 15% PSL rural requirement for the insurance sector also. So there is a strong regulatory mandate and push for rural business. That is one thing. Second, rural banking business is more so the rural credit business has got a strong priming effect on the rural economy. So most of the businesses that happens in rural areas are primed by credit, and therefore it's more critical. And obviously urban businesses also primed by credit, but in rural area the availability of formal credit is still limited. So there is a lot of scope to expand the business in rural areas. So that is the one USP about the BFSI sector. Thank you.
Okay. We are coming back to you, Arun. Are you connected now?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
I think serious technical glitch. Sorry.
Yeah, there's
So
no
so
issue.
so yeah, okay. So what I was talking about in the lighting industry, as I was telling, so it started in the year 2000, and today for I think all the brands, almost 20% of the contribution is from the rural market today. And initially, we thought this rural is going to be only to placement to ensure that our reach should be there. But as we progressed, we understood we need to have the portfolio itself for that, because for the lighting it was something new. So so if you look at those days, this voltage fluctuation used to be a big issue in the semi-urban and the rural market. So we launched the product called LVF, low voltage fighter, so which can be what to say, the winner product in this rural segment. But so that was the start, which happened to 20 years back. But post that, we have the portfolio developed for rural, and today, if you look in the segmentation itself, we have the specialized product for the rural and the marketing campaigns that run for the rural. And we have the big team in commercial organization. If we take close to about 30 people, which includes the national sales manager, and in the marketing for rural, it is the separate vertical as put together. So that is how we have progressed over the years. And now because in lighting industry, if you take the transformation happened from conventional to CFL, which CFL is also conventional energy efficient, now it is LED. So throughout, now it is sort of very clear in these markets what should be our strategy in terms of the GTM marketing activity, and what sort of portfolio. So that way the industry has really evolved, and it's doing fine.
Great, great. And as far as FMCG is concerned, because it gives from 30% to 40-45% of industry's business, HUL has a specific rural thrust. Though they keep on their verticals, they keep on rejigging the organization structure, but they have a Sakti program which is very strong, below 5,000 population. And same case will be with other FMCG companies like Dabur, Imami, Britannia, Mondelez. All these companies will have a special thrust for rural, and they have ASMs or area managers or regional managers who look after rural territories specifically. So as far as
Yeah.
career opportunities are concerned, FMCG is a big segment, and not only for ASM level, which is the management graduate level, but also for below frontliners and things like that. Ajay, I would like to just come back over here.
Mhm.
In insurance and banking, etc. You have do you have management graduates who join banks or insurance company as their rural heads in, and at what level do they join?
Management graduate typically are taken at the assistant manager, typically what you say, that level, or management trainee level, which is in banking parlance is the second level, you can say. I mean, they will be typically will having the field sales staff under them, and then they will be managing, say, one district or one region based on which product they are handling. And may within the management cadre, that will be the lowest level, obviously. But in because there are sales staff working below them, uh, in the capacity of field sales staff, most of the time their job will not involve direct sales, but it will be supervision. But it is always expected by every organization that you have a hands-on experience of sales also. So sometimes they have given some separate target, or some days they are sent for induction to do independent business also.
Okay. And is the vertical a separate vertical in rural? Is a separate vertical in most banks or
Yes,
insurance
yes,
companies?
yes.
Okay,
That
and
is
it
because
goes
of
up
the
to what
regulatory
level?
regulation. Yeah.
Okay, and it will go up to what level? Up to vice president level or senior vice president
No,
level? It will go
quite
or
senior level. Typically,
okay,
the vertical will be quite will be independent vertical to up to senior level, but there
okay,
is always the possibility for people from agri sector, agri bank, to move to other urban banking, or to SME banking, corporate banking, that also.
and
It's a,
and
there is no natural provision, progression to other departments other than PSU banks, but a person interested can always make the switch.
Okay. And normally, do they prefer management graduates or agribusiness graduates? Are they preferred, or you to pick up from any institute?
No, they do prefer for rural. Typically, all banks have a separate list of campuses.
Yes, yes, Ajay. Yeah,
Yeah. So the companies, may banks and yeah, do have a separate list of campuses from where they do rural recruitment,
right. Venkat,
and
how
they
does it?
become specialized campuses.
Okay, and Venkat, how does it fan out in agriculture? Do you prefer agriculture graduates more, or rural management graduates more, or how does it do in the agriculture industry, agriculture and input industries?
Yeah, so Sanjay, typically there are what we call as graduate agriculture trainees who are typically the BSc and the MSc graduates. Then we have management trainees who are agriculture graduates with a specialization in rural management stroke agribusiness management. They might be an agriculture graduate, not necessarily also depending on what it is. So those are the two types of programs, and then we have a separate program where we take PhDs from IARA or some of the universities, and we groom them as into the breeding community, which is scientist and junior scientist and senior scientist and all.
Right,
So most of the rural management institutes, but there are also specialized agri management institutes, the NIAM, the NAM, then Manage, and some of them, and of course, then there are IRMA, and then equivalent of IRMA's KSRM and multiple other things. Now, what we typically try to do is that if it is preferable, if it is an agriculture management graduate, but we don't differentiate much between an agri-business management and a rural management. Most of it, as long as the person has got the inclination, because we have also gone to Xavier Institute and things like that. So we take them as management trainees, and they go through the grind for a year before they are actually, slotted either into sales or marketing verticals, and sometimes even in supply chain. And most of
right.
the graduate agriculture trainees end up as sales officers or supply chain in production officers and things like that. One of the other important things which I would like to mention, and I don't know how much of that pans off in FMCG, there is a huge thrust of putting women into the front lines, and we have been very successful. Some of our bright young territory managers and area managers are actually now ladies who are working
Very
there in
nice.
the field in Rajasthan, in MP, in UP, and all. Very nice
Very
experiment. And even if you go to those, institutes, you would find a lot of, agriculture graduates and ladies who want to make a career in the front end and not in the corporate offices. So that is the other bit of it.
Okay. Arun, how is it in your industry as far as the recruitments are concerned for rural verticals?
See, for us, we have two things. One, we start as sales trainees, and then they do the commercial part of the rural operation, being in the sales. The other one is the management trainees. Depending on the institute, we take the talents. And normally, the career start with the frontline sales in these markets, and we will put them on the training for 6 months to 1 year in the different market, and then they will be placed as rural sales officers. And then we do have area manager who manage the rural business for the state, and then we have regional profile and then national profile. And then we do have in the marketing separate for the rural operation, we have the marketing managers, basically the product managers who manage the product segmentation for the rural and channel marketing. So it is the complete vertical which starts from sales and up to the national sales, and they will be reporting to the consumer business leader.
Okay, I think it is the same kind of a situation with most of the FMCG companies who have a very large sale of their goods in the rural areas. Uh,
Yeah.
I am not very sure that they pick up students only from rural management schools for their rural verticals. They will pick up from any other management schools and put them, in urban and rural, and then mix match the kind of thing. That's what I have mostly seen. whether it is because
Yeah.
of lack of knowledge, or they don't value it, or the institutes do not approach them, or they do not come to the institute. That's a separate factor. But this does also bring forth a question that whether rural marketing by itself is a science, and which needs certain attention and certain kind of a focus to be taught in these schools, etc., so that people are market ready when they join organizations. That's also one question which comes up, because that's a very large segment. FMCG is a very large segment. Coming back to technology, nowadays the kids who pass out from the business schools, everyone is very fond of technology. If there is no app, then then possibly it's not a job. There has to be an app connected to your jobs. So it could be, it could be. So Venkat, Ajay, I will come to Venkat little later. I just wanted to ask you. You have been in a fintech, and fintech is the buzzword nowadays. So how is it in terms of career opportunities in fintechs for management graduates? Your voice is not audible.
I should highlight one caution here. See, fintech industry is basically piggy riding on available digital footprint of customers. You offer loans or services to people based on their profile that is available already, and such profiles are readily available in urban areas. So fintechs are not going much in rural areas. It's very rare.
Okay.
Okay, but there is another breed of companies that has come up very recently called agritechs, which are focused on rural areas, and these are the
Okay.
companies which are leveraging various kind of technology to make the rural businesses more efficient or more smooth. Okay, so there are some opportunities are there, but not in mainstream fintech. There are very rarely there will be one two mainstream fintech which will value a rural specialization or rural expertise, but
But
agritechs will
isn't
do.
but isn't it that the number of banks being low in rural areas, ATMs being low in rural areas, institutional framework में जो लोग हैं अभी जनधन होने से तो थोड़ा ज्यादा आए हैं. Isn't it fintech a kind of a must for rural
Some
fintech
problem is
solution?
the single word answer is lack of commercial viability. कमर्शियली वायबल
Okay.
बिजनेस मॉडल नहीं है. मैं
Okay.
अभी हमारे पहले जो प्रेजेंटेशन हुआ था उसमें वो स्टूडेंट बता नहीं पाए जो उसको ये पूछ रहे थे, प्रॉप कर रहे थे कि व्हाई इट इज गोइंग डाउन, मिलेट कल्टीवेशन इज गोइंग डाउन बिकॉज देयर इज नो कमर्शियल वायबिलिटी फॉर मिलेट कल्टीवेशन. सो द सेम
Okay.
लॉजिक बैंकिंग के लिए कमर्शियल वायबिलिटी नहीं है. देयर इज अ रेगुलेटरी पुश, देयरफॉर बैंकिंग विल बी गोइंग देयर.
Okay. Venkat, coming to to you about the role of technology in agriculture. Any pointers for the students?
Yeah, so I think so. This is something, Sanjay, which is catching up big time. I'll tell you the areas in which the interventions are happening. So, for a long period of time, we used to do most of our product technology transfer or extension programs physically, calling a group of farmers and training them and all, which would still continue because we have to show them the seed. But what we have learned over the last couple of years, the same thing can also be done through a mode which we have a tool called eSampark, and similarly every company is good have. You can actually broadcast a field to a large set of farmers who would not be able to come to the probably to the field for variety of reasons. And then you can also answer questions about his agronomy issues from a larger panel. So most of the technology transfer or the extension can be done through a digital format. It basically is more in terms of efficiently, more in terms of reaching more number of farmers. And the second one is when we track the product life cycle, we used to have enormous notes which we used to make Excel sheets, tables, and then we used to transfer them into a computer and then all of that. So now we have apps where we start scoring the products. We have trials of different hybrids of ours, competition and all. It straight goes into the system, gets coupled. So both in terms of product development product management life cycle of a product, there are some digital applications which most of the companies have developed in their form or the other, and those are being applied, and the whole order to cash processing is now effortlessly through an app and all. So what I am saying is, if you are a rural management graduate, or if you are somebody who wants to work in the rural area, appreciation of digital, we are not expecting them to make apps and develop all of that. Appreciation of that, trying to execute it, and you have to be a little digital native. You can't be completely ignorant and say that no, I don't know anything about it. That bit of it is something which we expect from the students, and most of the times when we also talk to them, we find that that bit of knowledge is there. But as far as product development is concerned, the app development and all, that is something which we hire techies, and either we buy products or we start customizing some of them. That is a different bit. So most of us who are in the rural field should start appreciating the technology, should be able to execute it, and should make efforts to learn it. That bit of an orientation is enough to go and talk to the farmer and understand it. So that is what
Arun,
our expectations.
yeah, okay. Arun, what about sales effectiveness when you sell your products in the rural areas and go? Is technology used in your organization towards sales effectiveness and efficiencies enhancement?
Yeah, we have more of handheld devices which we call a sales automation device to manage the sales, what they do, and then it also has the geo tagging so that we know where exactly they are going and how the outlets are mapped. So it is more towards the commercial, and then also understanding the outlet, taking the pics and location so that it is mapped properly. It is done on that.
Yeah, great, great. I remember one incident when if the salesperson who is in charge of a particular village does not report by a specific time, like 10 o'clock, he is supposed to report. Then the call automatically goes to the call center, and the call center starts calling to the retailer, assuming the salesman is absent. So the salesman cannot afford to be absent. So these are the kind of challenges we used to always have in the rural areas earlier, that जो वो आदमी गया कि नहीं गया वो पता करने को जब तक टाइम लगता था तब तक आपका दिन गुजर जाता था. So whether it is sales force
We
attendance
have not gone
management,
to that level now because of some privacy also, and
what,
moreover, definitely they can come back with the reason stating that there is no network.
anyway,
But Sanjay, I just wanted to talk about an intervention which the government of India is planning. They talk about traceability, which is nothing but a blockchain. What they are now
right,
saying to most of the seed companies is, right from the place where it is seed is produced, and all of you know that seed is not an assembly line production. The seed which we
right,
sell also has to be grown in the field. So from there to the last end customer who buys it, they are now talking about an entire traceability aspect of it, because a commercial farmer who is buying the seed should know where it has been produced, and other details. This is a very big ambitious project which the government of India
yes,
is actually trying to now impose. So I think we will see large scale technology interventions in rural markets and in
yes.
agriculture is around the farmers and all. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as per my knowledge is concerned, as far as sales effectiveness is and efficiency is there, it is being pursued in rural areas because of distance and dispersion factors much more than in
Yes.
urban areas. So it's an exciting field for young managers to join, and and use their out of box thinking and innovative thinking in terms of trying to take to the companies or that geographies which they are handling to the next level. So the last question that I had to the panel, starting from Ajay, was that how do we make rural marketing more aspirational? How do we make aware the students the benefits of a career in rural marketing? What role do you think that should the academia or industry or us and associations like us we should play? Because many of the things that we discuss here, many of the students may or may not be aware. They look at they are basically to use a term, they basically are aligned with whatever is discussed in the second year in their colleges, and they pick up careers like that. And वहाँ पे जो CTC ज़्यादा हुआ वहाँ अप्लाई कर लिया without knowing, और and after that they join and they say कि ये जॉब तो मुझे ऐसा नहीं चाहिए था. क्या strengths है, क्या pros and cons of different industries people do not know. How do we make it more aspirational and so that more people join into the core sector?
Sir, I think we need to work on two prong strategy. One is highlighting that the standard of living and saving potential vis-a-vis your CTC. Your CTC in rural areas might be lower than your metro counterpart, but you will get a better standard of living in rural areas, and your saving potential will be better. So ultimately, you are working to earn money for yourself. You will get to keep more share of what you are earning for yourself rather than spending it on travel, food, and rent. That is
Right,
one side of positioning. Second, when you are working in rural areas, you are actually contributing. Second is through your job, you are contributing to more to the nation building. You are helping a segment which is otherwise underserved. So that should be
right,
the sort of a social positioning. So both
right.
financial and social aspects need to be explained better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Arun, any viewpoints on this?
See, for us as an organization, what we do, let me put it this problem statement into two. One, as an institute, what they should do, and as an organization, what we are doing. So, as an organization, what we are doing is for anyone to become area manager in Philips, it is the mandatory for him to have the rural working. That is the must for us. Otherwise, we don't make him area manager. That area management can be only the urban market, or it will be when it is state overall urban and the rural market. If it is a small state, they will manage both urban and rural. If it is a big metro, they will manage metro, and the surrounding rural market will be different. So as a mandatory thing, the rural operation is the must for them, so that they need to go through the stint of rural before they get into the people manager role. So that is one. And we do hire talent from this rural specific institute like Irma or Xavier or something like that. And so we also give sort of importance, so that when they get into the after the sales stint, when they put when we put them in the marketing for the product management role, so they do the general overall product management, and then they also get into the rural part of the thing, so that to get to have more knowledge on that. And further growth, both are evaluated in the similar fashion. It is not that people who manage rural they can't come here, or people who managed urban they will not be able to go. So from the organization standpoint, we ensure in the sales they have to do this rural stint. And in terms of institute, how they promote, how they educate, I think that maybe association like RMI can have the like what you are doing now. I think if we have the better gathering or better reach for more target audience, I think that will really help, because it is only not FMCG or FMCD. There are many specific many industries. The finance is a big thing there, and automobile is a big segment there. I think the wider scope in terms of educating, I think definitely it will help. This is my
Cement
take.
also, cement is a huge
Yeah.
segment, cement. Venkat, your considered views on this?
Yeah, so Sanjay, for us, rural per se is not an issue, but how do you make agriculture aspirational? So, to that
Right.
extent, I will put it in two boxes. When I go to a rural management institute versus an agribusiness management institute, which is typically managed NIAM, NAM, GB Pantnagar University of versus an IRMA, Wellinger, and like that. That is where the challenge is. When you go to an agribusiness management institutes, it's not a big challenge because they know that their careers are in agriculture, and it is kind of agribusiness management plays a basic this thing in agriculture. But when you go to a rural management institute, that is where the retention, the stickiness, and all of that. And Sanjay, you were my senior in IRMA, and within IRMA, probably in my batch of 92 students, 91 rather, I'm the only one who has been in agri input, and and a lot of guys who were from Pantnagar. And in my junior batch, there is only one guy, and we are the only two ones in the agri input industry per se. For some strange reasons, this does not excite people. So the challenge is with the rural management per se. How do we make it? Because then the second one is between sales and the corporate jobs of either the brand management, product management, campaign effectiveness. How do we push more and more guys into the sales part of it? So these are the challenges which at least we are experiencing. And while I don't want to be very regional and all, I can tell you UP, Bihar, now we are seeing a large traction from Orissa and all. There is a constant stream of people who are coming, who are willing to work in those rural settings. Largely, agri graduates, and UP and Bihar actually give the maximum, if you can see them
Yeah.
all over the place. While
Yes.
most of the guys who do agriculture in, some of the other parts either get themselves diversified into techie, or earlier it was IAS vagara likho. OUAT was also very famous earlier for that, where a lot of MSc guys used to do. So we are also seeing that kind of a talent coming in. But overall, I think the challenge is how do we sell an agri job to a rural management graduate, not to an agri business management graduate. Our experiences have been kind of mixed, I should say, because we went to Xavier Institute of Rural Management, we went to IRMA, and we also, had, I think probably Wellinger also, we picked up one guy or one lady or somebody like that. So that is what it is. So how do we make agriculture an aspirational one is a
Yes.
challenge which I would say, not rural per se. Right.
I spoke to a few of the business schools and their placement coordinators, and this is the summary of what I learned from them. Many of them felt that students are normally guided by what has happened to their earlier batches. This is first point they take. Second thing, main consideration is what is the CTC is being offered. So I said, why only these two consideration? Aren't there anything? I could feel that whatever many of the institutes do is that before the placement season takes place, they would bring industry professionals to talk about careers and things like that. But by that time, it is possibly a little delayed. If this is done just after the first year and before the beginning of the second year, if you invite industry professionals, if you invite, for example, RMAI can play a role in going to the top business schools and agribusiness management schools and talk of different careers, the kind of discussion that we are having here. This opens up
Absolutely.
two aspects. One aspect it opens up is that the institute to write to many of the organizations to come to their campus placement. And second also is the students themselves are aware कि मेरा यहाँ पे BFSI में जाने से मुझे क्या क्या opportunity मिल सकती है. I can clarify today with one Ajay Desai, rather than at the end of the day or when the bus is missed, then I think कि नहीं मुझे BFSI जाने से ठीक होता. Rural में BFSI बहुत अच्छा है. See, अगर रूरल मैनेजमेंट करने के लिए लड़का आया है, if he has come to do rural management, he is convinced that anything done with rural with a good job will be a differentiator for him. So, and if it's agriculture graduate, वो तो फिर चार लगने वाली बात है. I think somewhere in that process we are either copying urban a lot, thinking that what has happened in the past. Urban में शायद आपको इतना करना जरूरत नहीं है, because किसी को भी मैनेजमेंट ग्रेजुएट चाहिए, वो तो IIMs में जाएगा या जेवियर्स में जाएगा या सिम्बायोसिस में जाएगा या नरसिम्हा में जाएगा. It's common. There is nothing much of to be done. But a lot of education needs to be done by the industry, as well as organizations have to be invited to the campus much early in the second year शुरू होने से पहले. ये अगर किया जाए तो बच्चों को 6-8 महीने का टाइम मिलेगा टू सोचने के लिए, टू इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट्स के साथ बात करने के लिए कि क्या करियर मेरे लिए अच्छा हो सकता है. It should not be done at the fag end in the month of October or November when the campus placement is going to just start in the month of December or January. So anyway, very, very exciting points came up, and Venkat, Arun, and Ajay, I am very thankful to you. I hope that the students who have participated today, they benefit a lot. And if you have any queries, any questions, we can take. Adhar, if there are any questions from any students, then to the panelists, then they can take the questions now.
No, sir. There are no questions as of now. But we
Okay, so
will, if anything comes.
if any questions come, you can forward it to us, and it will be a pleasure to answer. So that's all, gentlemen. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for attending. We are grateful to you, and
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.